The rain fell in sheets across the gravel drive, and Jessamine Whitmore stood in the middle of it, soaked through to her chemise. Behind her, the doors of Whitmore Hall slammed shut with a sound like a coffin lid closing. The brass knocker rattled once, then fell silent. Through the tall windows she could see the golden glow of chandeliers, the shadows of guests still moving through the rooms where she'd lived her entire 22 years. They hadn't even let her take a coat. Her hands were shaking, though whether from cold or shock, she couldn't tell anymore. Blood trickled from a cut on her cheekbone where Lysandra's ring had caught her during the slap. The sapphire ring, the one that had belonged to their mother. Everything belonged to Lysandra now. Jessamine's mind kept circling back to the moment it all shattered. Barely an hour ago, standing in the drawing room surrounded by 50 of society's finest. "You dare to question me?" Lysandra's voice had been velvet poison, pitched perfectly to Carrie. "After everything I've done for you? After I kept you clothed and fed out of the goodness of my heart? I only asked about Mother's jewelry." Jessamine had kept her voice low, reasonable. "Father's will specified that the pearls were to be mine. I simply wanted to— You wanted to steal from me, just as you've always wanted everything I have." The guests had gone silent. 50 pairs of eyes, watching. "That's not true." Jessamine had felt the first flutter of panic. "Lysandra, please, can we discuss this privately?" "Privately?" Her sister had laughed, the sound bright and brittle. "So you can spin more lies without witnesses?" "I think not." Lysandra had turned to their guests then, her beautiful face arranged in an expression of wounded dignity. At 20 years old, she'd already mastered the art of performance. Their father's death 6 months ago had left her sole heir to the Whitmore fortune, a curious outcome given that Jessamine was the elder. But the will had been clear. Lysandra inherited everything. Jessamine received a small allowance and permission to remain at Whitmore Hall, at her sister's discretion. That discretion had just run out. "My sister," Lysandra had announced to the assembled guests, "has been spreading vicious rumors about my character. She has attempted to poison my reputation with our bankers, our solicitors, even our own servants. She has forged letters. She has stolen correspondence. She has done everything in her power to undermine me since the moment Father died." "None of that is true." Jessamine had stepped forward, but Lord Ashworth's wife had physically recoiled from her, as though corruption were contagious. "I have been patient," Lysandra had continued, dabbing at eyes that remained perfectly dry. "I have been forgiving. But tonight I discovered she has been writing to the Duke of Ashworth, attempting to arrange a secret meeting, attempting to seduce a man so far above her station that the very notion is laughable." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "I never wrote to anyone. I don't even know the Duke of Ashworth." Lies. Lysandra had pulled a letter from her bodice, waving it for all to see. In her own hand, begging him to meet her, offering herself like some common— "That's forged. You know I didn't write that." The slap had come fast and hard, snapping Jessamine's head to the side. "Get out." Lysandra's whisper had been meant for Jessamine alone. "No one wants you here. No one has ever wanted you. Father certainly didn't, or he wouldn't have left you with nothing. Get out of my house and don't ever come back." And now here she stood, in the rain, in the dark, with nothing but the dress on her back, and nowhere to go. The nearest village was 8 kilometers away. She would never make it. Jessamine walked because standing still meant dying. The rain had not eased. If anything, it had grown heavier, turning the country road into a river of mud that sucked at her silk slippers with every step. One shoe had already been lost to the muck somewhere behind her. She'd stopped noticing the cold 10 minutes ago, which frightened her more than the darkness. When your body stopped hurting, it meant your body was giving up. She thought of her mother, dead these 3 years, her father, gone 6 months. She thought of the girl she'd been before Lysandra had learned to smile while lying, before the will had been read, and everything had changed. She thought of the letter Lysandra had forged. The Duke of Ashworth. A man Jessamine had never met, never written to, never even seen. Why had Lysandra chosen him for this particular humiliation? It didn't matter now. Nothing mattered except putting one foot in front of the other. The sound of hooves came from behind her, moving fast. Jessamine stumbled to the side of the road, pressing herself against a hedgerow. Probably a guest leaving the party. Someone who would ride past without a second glance at the bedraggled creature in the mud. But the horse slowed. Stopped. Good God. The voice was male, deep, carrying the clipped authority of the aristocracy. Jessamine heard boots hit the ground, heard footsteps squelching through mud toward her. She tried to speak, but her jaw was shaking too hard. "Look at me." A hand gripped her chin, tilting her face up. Through the rain and the darkness, she could barely make out his features. Sharp jaw, dark hair plastered to his forehead, eyes that caught what little moonlight penetrated the clouds. "Can you hear me? Can you tell me your name?" Jessamine." Her teeth chattered around the syllables. "Jessamine Whitmore." Something flickered in his expression. Recognition? "Whitmore Hall is 2 kilometers behind us. Why are you out here alone? In this weather? Dressed like that?" Cast out. Speaking was exhausting. "My sister. Her knees buckled. He caught her before she hit the ground, one arm around her waist, the other steadying her shoulders. "You're frozen through." His tone had shifted from shock to assessment. "How long have you been walking?" "Don't know. Hour, maybe more." "Damn." He was already removing his coat, wrapping it around her shoulders. It was warm from his body, heavy with the scent of rain and sandalwood. "There's an inn 5 kilometers ahead. Can you ride?" I don't." He didn't wait for a coherent answer. He lifted her as though she weighed nothing, carrying her to his horse, a massive black stallion that stood patiently despite the downpour. He set her in the saddle, then mounted behind her, one arm locked around her waist. "Stay awake." His voice was close to her ear, commanding. "Talk to me. Tell me what happened." "She told everyone I was a liar, a thief." Jessamine's words came in fragments. "Forged a letter, said I wrote to the Duke of Ashworth, offering myself to him." The arm around her waist tightened almost imperceptibly. "Did she?" he said. It wasn't a question. "Never met him, never wrote anything. She made it up. All of it." "I believe you." Something about the certainty in his voice made Jessamine turn her head, trying to see his face through the rain. "How can you believe me? You don't even know me." "No," he agreed, and his voice carried something dark, something dangerous. "But I know your sister, and I know exactly what kind of lies she's capable of." Before Jessamine could ask what that meant, the darkness at the edges of her vision rushed inward. She heard him curse as she slumped against his chest. Then nothing. Jessamine woke to warmth and confusion. The ceiling above her was unfamiliar. Dark wooden beams, a candle chandelier casting soft light. She was lying in a bed that smelled of lavender, covered in quilts that seemed to weigh 100 pounds. Her dress was gone, replaced by a linen nightgown that wasn't hers. For a moment she simply breathed, letting sensation return. Her fingers and toes ached, which meant she hadn't lost them to frostbite. Her cheek throbbed where Lysandra had struck her. Everything else was simply exhausted. "You're awake." Jessamine turned her head too quickly. Pain lanced through her neck. The man from the road sat in a chair beside the window, watching her with pale gray eyes that seemed to catalog every detail. In the candlelight, she could see him properly for the first time. Sharp cheekbones, a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile, dark hair now dry and slightly disheveled. He was perhaps 30, dressed in simple clothing that nevertheless screamed wealth. He held a glass of something amber, untouched. "Where am I?" "The Crossed Keys Inn. You've been unconscious for 14 hours. The physician says you'll recover fully, provided you don't attempt any more midnight walks through rainstorms." 14 hours? Your body needed rest. It nearly shut down permanently. He stood, moving to a small table where a tea service waited. He poured a cup and brought it to her, helping her sit up enough to drink. His hands were careful, impersonal. "When did you last eat?" Jessamine tried to remember. "Yesterday morning. Lysandra dismissed all the servants who liked me. No one brought me dinner. Your sister sounds charming. She wasn't always—" Jessamine stopped. That was a lie, wasn't it? Lysandra had always been this way. Jessamine had simply refused to see it. "Who are you?" He returned to his chair, settling into it with the controlled grace of a man who was never truly relaxed. "That's a complicated question. Your name, then. That should be simple." "Cassian Valore." He watched her face. "Duke of Ashworth." The teacup nearly slipped from Jessamine's fingers. "You're—" The letter. The forged letter. Oh God. "I was riding home from an engagement in Hertfordshire when I found you. The same road that passes Whitmore Hall." He steepled his fingers. "Your sister accused you of writing to me, offering yourself. I assume you understand why I found that interesting. I didn't write that letter. I swear it. I've never—" "I know you didn't write it." His voice was calm, certain. "Because I have received letters from your sister. Dozens of them. She's been attempting to secure my attention for the better part of a year, using increasingly creative methods." Jessamine stared at him. "Lysandra has been writing to you?" "Persistently. I've ignored every attempt. Apparently, she decided that if she couldn't attract me herself, she would ensure no one else could either." His eyes were cold. "Particularly not a sister she views as competition." "I'm not competition. I'm nothing. She made sure of that when Father died." "Your father's will." The Duke's expression sharpened. "I've heard rumors about that document. Rumors that it was altered before his death." Jessamine's heart stuttered. "What?" "Your father and I had correspondence. Brief, but substantive. He mentioned you specifically, mentioned his plans to ensure your security. And then he died. And suddenly, everything went to Lysandra." "You think she changed the will?" "I think your sister is capable of a great deal more than changing a will." He leaned forward. "Tell me, Miss Whitmore, what do you know about the fire at Thornwood Estate 3 years ago?" "The fire?" Jessamine frowned. "Lord Thornwood's country house? It burned down. He lost everything. His family barely escaped." Lord Thornwood had recently refused Lysandra's request for a courtship with his eldest son. The Duke's voice was soft. "Interesting timing, don't you think?" A cold that had nothing to do with temperature crept through Jessamine's veins. "You can't mean— She wouldn't— I can't prove anything." "Yet." He stood, walking to the window. Rain still streaked the glass. "But I've been watching your sister for 3 years, Miss Whitmore, gathering evidence, waiting for an opportunity." He turned to face her. "And then I found you, half dead on a country road, cast out by the very woman I've been trying to destroy. You know her secrets. You've lived in that house. You've seen things no outsider could ever see." Jessamine understood suddenly. "You want to use me?" "I want to offer you a choice." He crossed to the bed, standing over her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "You can leave this inn with enough money to start over somewhere far away. New name, new life. You'll spend the rest of your years looking over your shoulder because Lysandra doesn't leave loose ends. Or you come with me to Ashworth Keep. You help me build a case against your sister. You testify to what you've witnessed, what you know, and in exchange, I offer you my protection." He paused. "My name?" Jessamine's mouth went dry. "Your name? Marry me, Miss Whitmore. Become the Duchess of Ashworth. Your sister can't touch you if you outrank her. She can't silence you if the most powerful man in the northern counties is standing beside you. You're asking me to marry you so we can destroy my sister together. I'm offering you a weapon." His gray eyes held hers. "You can die a victim, or you can live long enough to become the one thing Lysandra never expected: a threat." Jessamine looked at this man, this stranger, who had pulled her from the mud and was now offering her a crown made of vengeance. "If I do this," she said slowly, "I want the truth about my father's will. I want to know if she stole my inheritance." "Agreed? And I want Lord Thornwood to know what really happened to his estate. If she burned it, his family deserves justice." "Agreed. And I want her to know it was me." Jessamine's voice hardened. "When it all falls down, I want her to see my face and know that the sister she threw away is the one who destroyed her." Cassian Valor, Duke of Ashworth, extended his hand. "Then we have a bargain, Miss Whitmore." Jessamine took it. His grip was firm, warm, and absolutely unforgiving. She had been cast into the rain with nothing. Now she would return as a storm. Ashworth Keep rose from the moorland like something carved from the earth itself. Dark stone walls climbed 4 stories high, topped with battlements that spoke of centuries when dukes were warriors, not politicians. The windows were narrow, watchful. The ground stretched endlessly in every direction, wild heather and ancient oaks, and a silence so complete it felt holy. Jessamine pressed her face to the carriage window, her breath fogging the glass. "It's a fortress," she murmured. "It was built during the Wars of the Roses." Cassian sat across from her, his expression unreadable. "My family has held it for 400 years. We've survived sieges, rebellions, and 3 attempts at assassination. We'll survive your sister." 3 days had passed since their bargain at the inn. 3 days of travel, of careful meals, of a physician checking her recovery at every stop. Cassian had been courteous and distant, ensuring her comfort while revealing nothing of himself. She still didn't know why he truly hated Lysandra. The carriage rolled through iron gates, and suddenly they were surrounded by activity. Servants streamed from the keep's entrance, lining up in precise rows. An older woman with steel-gray hair stood at their head, her posture military straight. "Mrs. Alcott," Cassian said as he helped Jessamine down. "This is Miss Jessamine Whitmore. She will be the Duchess of Ashworth within the fortnight. See that she has everything she needs." If Mrs. Alcott was surprised, she didn't show it. Her eyes swept over Jessamine's borrowed dress, her wind-tangled hair, the fading bruise on her cheek, and something like approval flickered there. "Welcome to Ashworth Keep, Miss Whitmore. We've prepared the Duchess's chambers in the East Tower." The next 2 weeks blurred into exhaustion. Jessamine learned to walk like a duchess, shoulders squared, chin lifted, each step deliberate. She learned to speak like a duchess, modulating her voice, choosing words that cut without seeming sharp. She learned which fork to use, which wines to request, which topics were acceptable, and which would mark her as provincial. Mrs. Alcott was relentless. "Again," she would say when Jessamine's curtsy wasn't deep enough. "Again," when her pronunciation slipped. "Again," when her composure cracked during a mock conversation about politics. But there were moments of kindness, too. A cup of tea appearing exactly when Jessamine's energy flagged. A gentle correction instead of a sharp one when she was clearly struggling. A story about Mrs. Alcott's own journey from housekeeper's daughter to the most powerful servant in the northern counties. "His Grace's mother trained me," Mrs. Alcott said one evening. "She believed that anyone could learn grace, given enough determination. She would have liked you, I think." "What happened to her?" Mrs. Alcott's expression shuddered. "That's not my story to tell." At night, Alone in her vast chambers, Jessamine would stand at the window and stare out at the moors. She thought about Lysandra in Whitmore Hall, surrounded by the luxury their mother had built. She thought about the forged letter, the stolen inheritance, the fire at Thornwood Estate. She thought about Cassian, who watched her from doorways and said nothing, whose gray eyes held secrets she couldn't yet decipher. He was using her. She knew that, but she was using him too. The question was, which of them would regret it first? On the 12th night, Jessamine couldn't sleep. The keep was silent at this hour. All the servants abed, the corridors lit only by occasional candles. She wrapped herself in a shawl and wandered, learning the bones of her new home. The portrait gallery, the music room, the library that seemed to stretch forever. It was in the library that she found him. Cassian stood before the fireplace, one hand braced on the mantel, staring into flames that had burned down to embers. He held a glass of whiskey, untouched. His coat was discarded, his shirt sleeves rolled, his careful composure completely absent. He looked like a man in pain. "Your Grace?" He turned sharply, and for one unguarded moment, she saw something raw in his expression. Then the mask slammed back into place. "Miss Whitmore, you should be resting." "So should you." She crossed the library, stopping a few feet from the fireplace. On the mantel beside his hand sat a small portrait, a young woman with dark hair and laughing eyes, perhaps 17 or 18. "Who is she?" Cassian was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. "My sister." His voice was rough. "Vivian. She died 5 years ago." "I'm sorry." "Don't be." He drained his whiskey in one swallow. "Be angry, be furious, because your sister killed her." The words hung in the air like smoke. Lysandra killed. Jessamine couldn't finish the sentence. Vivian was 18. Beautiful. Kind to a fault. Cassian set down his glass with exaggerated care. She came out that season and immediately became the most sought-after debutante in London. Every eligible man wanted her attention. Every ambitious mother saw her as a threat. Including Lysandra? Lysandra was 15, but already convinced she deserved to be the center of attention. Vivian outshone her effortlessly, not through cruelty, but simply by being herself. Cassian's jaw tightened. Your sister couldn't bear it. She saw Vivian as an obstacle to everything she wanted. The best suitors, the highest status, the brightest spotlight. Jessamine felt ice spreading through her chest. What happened? Vivian went riding one morning. Her saddle girth had been cut almost through. The horse threw her at full gallop. She broke her neck. You can't know Lysandra did that. I know she was seen in our stables that morning. I know she had been openly hostile to Vivian for weeks. I know that after my sister's death, Lysandra suddenly had no competition for the season's most eligible bachelors. Jessamine sank into a chair, her legs unable to hold her. All this time, she breathed. All these years, I lived with her. I defended her. I told myself she was just difficult, just spoiled, just... You didn't know. I should have seen it. She's very good at hiding. Cassian crossed to her, crouching so they were eye level. That's why I need you. You've lived in that house. You've watched her for years. You know things you don't even realize you know. I want to help you. Jessamine's voice cracked. Not just for revenge, not just for my inheritance, for Vivian, for Lord Thornwood's family, for everyone she's ever hurt. That's not a small commitment. Neither is marrying a stranger to destroy my own sister. She met his eyes. You've been treating me like a weapon to be aimed, but I'm not a tool. I'm a partner. Or this doesn't work. Cassian studied her for a long moment. Then slowly he extended his hand. Partners. She took it. His grip was warm, and this time, it felt like something more than a bargain. The wedding was held in Ashworth Keep's private chapel, with only Mrs. Alcott and the household staff as witnesses. Jessamine wore ivory silk, simple but exquisite, chosen by Mrs. Alcott from the previous Duchess's wardrobe. Cassian wore black, as always, but he'd pinned a spray of white heather to his lapel. A northern tradition, Mrs. Alcott had explained, for luck and protection. The vows were brief and legal. Cassian's voice was steady. Jessamine's only trembled once. When it was done, when the register was signed and the rings exchanged, Cassian lifted her hand to his lips in a gesture that was purely formal. But his eyes held something that wasn't formal at all. "Now," he said quietly, "we begin." The test came 3 days later in the form of a dinner party. 12 guests, Cassian explained over breakfast, carefully chosen. Lord and Lady Pemberton, allies of mine. Sir Marcus Thorne, a magistrate with influence. Lady Ashworth, my aunt, who will judge you more harshly than anyone alive. Comforting. And Lord Blackwood. Cassian paused. Who invested heavily with your father's estate? Investments that seem to have vanished since Lysandra took control. Jessamine understood immediately. You want me to plant doubt. I want you to be exactly what you are. A woman who is cast out for asking questions about missing money. If Lord Blackwood starts asking his own questions, others will follow. That evening, Jessamine descended the grand staircase in deep emerald velvet, her mother's pearls at her throat, the ones Lysandra had claimed but hadn't yet found in Jessamine's hidden luggage. Her hair was swept up in the current fashion. Her posture was flawless. She looked like a duchess. She felt like a fraud. But she walked into that dining room, and she smiled, and she performed. Lady Ashworth was indeed terrifying, a silver-haired dragon who asked pointed questions about Jessamine's family, her education, and her accomplishments. Jessamine answered each one with careful honesty, admitting her modest upbringing while emphasizing her mother's gentle breeding. Your mother was a Harrington, Lady Ashworth said finally. Good stock. It shows. From her, that was practically an embrace. Lord Blackwood was easier. A jovial man with worried eyes, he mentioned his investments within the first hour. Your father managed my pension fund, he said over the fish course. Solid returns for years. But since his passing, I've had trouble getting clear answers from Whitmore Hall. How troubling. Jessamine kept her voice light. My sister can be difficult to reach. She has so many responsibilities now. You don't manage the estate alongside her? I'm afraid my sister and I had a falling out. Jessamine touched her cheek, where the bruise had finally faded. She felt I was asking too many questions about the accounts. Questions she preferred not to answer. Lord Blackwood's eyes sharpened. What sort of questions? Oh, nothing specific. Jessamine smiled. Just curiosity about where certain funds had gone. Investments that seemed to exist on paper, but nowhere else. She saw Cassian watching from across the table, his expression neutral, but she saw the satisfaction in his eyes. After dinner, when the guests had departed and the servants were clearing the remnants of success, Cassian found her in the portrait gallery. Lord Blackwood will begin inquiries tomorrow, he said. Lady Pemberton has already promised to mention your story to 3 of her closest friends, and my aunt has declared you acceptable. High praise. The highest she's capable of. He stepped closer. You were perfect tonight. I was terrified. That's what made it perfect. His hand brushed her elbow, a touch so light she might have imagined it. Fear didn't stop you. That's the difference between victims and survivors. Jessamine looked up at him, at this man who had pulled her from the mud and made her a duchess and was teaching her to be a weapon. What happens now? Now the rumors begin to spread. His gray eyes gleamed. And in 2 weeks, we attend the Ashworth Annual Ball in London. Every important family in the country will be there. Including Lysandra? Including Lysandra. His smile was cold and beautiful. She'll learn you're alive. She'll learn you're married. And she'll realize, too late, that the sister she threw away has become the one thing she can't control. Jessamine thought of Lysandra's face when she'd cast her out. No one wants you. Soon, very soon, her sister would discover just how wrong she'd been. The Ashworth annual ball was the event of the season. 300 guests filled the grand ballroom of Ashworth House in London, the Duke's city residence. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow light across silk gowns and military medals. An orchestra played from a gilded balcony. Champagne flowed like water. And Jessamine stood at the top of the marble staircase, her hand on Cassian's arm, waiting to be announced. "Breathe," he murmured. "I am breathing." "You're holding your breath. I can feel your pulse racing through your glove." She forced air into her lungs. What if she's already here? What if she sees me before I'm ready? Then she sees a duchess on the arm of the most powerful man in the room. Cassian's hand covered hers. "You've earned this moment. Don't let fear steal it." The majordomo's voice rang out across the ballroom. His Grace, the Duke of Ashworth, and Her Grace, the Duchess of Ashworth. 300 heads turned. Jessamine descended the staircase with the grace Mrs. Alcott had drilled into her bones. Her gown was midnight blue silk, scattered with tiny crystals that caught the light like stars. Sapphires glittered at her throat and ears. She looked like a constellation given human form. She looked nothing like the woman Lysandra had thrown into the rain. The crowd parted as they reached the ballroom floor. Whispers followed them like shadows. "Is that truly the Whitmore girl? I heard she was cast out, disinherited, and now she's a duchess? How delicious." Jessamine smiled through it all, accepting congratulations, deflecting curious questions, playing the role she'd been trained to perform. Cassian stayed close, his presence a shield against the more aggressive inquiries. An hour passed, then 2. Lysandra had not yet arrived. "Perhaps she won't come," Jessamine said during a brief respite near the refreshment table. "She'll come." Cassian's eyes scanned the crowd. "She's been trying to secure my attention for a year. She won't miss an opportunity to—" He stopped. Jessamine followed his gaze to the ballroom entrance. Lysandra stood at the top of the staircase, resplendent in crimson silk, her golden hair piled in elaborate curls. She was beautiful, achingly so, the kind of beauty that made people forget to question what lay beneath. The majordomo announced her. "Miss Lysandra Whitmore, of Whitmore Hall." Lysandra descended with practiced elegance, her smile radiant for the assembled guests. She hadn't seen Jessamine yet. Her eyes were scanning the room, searching for someone, searching for Cassian. When she found him, her smile brightened. When she saw who stood beside him, her smile died. For one perfect moment, Lysandra's mask slipped completely. Shock, horror, fury. All of it flashed across her beautiful face before she caught herself. But Jessamine had seen, and so had half the ballroom. Lysandra recovered quickly, her expression smoothing into polite curiosity. She began moving through the crowd, accepting greetings, laughing at witticisms, making her way inexorably toward the Duke and his new Duchess. "She's coming," Jessamine breathed. "Let her come." Cassian's voice was steel. "Remember who you are now." Lysandra stopped before them, her curtsy perfectly calibrated, respectful enough for a duchess, shallow enough to suggest she didn't mean it. "Your Grace." Her eyes locked onto Cassian. "How wonderful to finally meet properly. Your reputation precedes you." "As does yours, Miss Whitmore." Cassian's tone was ice. Lysandra's gaze slid to Jessamine, and her smile turned poisonous. "Sister, what a surprise. I thought you'd left the country. Or died. The rumors were so unclear. As you can see, I'm very much alive." Jessamine kept her voice pleasant. "And very happily married." "So I've heard." "How fortunate for you." Lysandra's eyes swept over Jessamine's gown, her jewels, and her hand resting on Cassian's arm. "Though, I must say, I'm curious how you managed to catch a duke's attention. You were always so ordinary. Perhaps His Grace prefers substance over performance? Something ugly flickered in Lysandra's expression. We should talk, she said sweetly. Privately. So much to catch up on. I don't think that's necessary. Oh, but it is. Lysandra leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper only Jessamine could hear. Unless you want everyone here to know what you really are, what you really did. I have letters, sister. Evidence. One word from me, and your little fairy tale ends tonight. Jessamine's heart hammered against her ribs, but she didn't flinch. Then let's talk, she said. The garden terrace. 10 minutes. She walked away before Lysandra could respond, her spine straight, her head high. Inside, she was shaking. The garden terrace was empty, lit only by moonlight and the distant glow of the ballroom windows. Jessamine stood at the stone balustrade, watching her breath form clouds in the cold air. Behind her she heard footsteps, the whisper of silk. Alone at last. She turned. Lysandra stood in the doorway, her crimson gown like a bloodstain against the darkness. What do you want, Lysandra? What I've always wanted. Her sister stepped onto the terrace, closing the distance between them. Everything. You already have everything. Father's money, mother's jewels, the house, the reputation. What more could you possibly need? The Duke. Lysandra's voice was flat. I've been cultivating him for a year, writing letters, arranging introductions, building toward a proposal. And then you stumbled out of a rainstorm and stole him. I didn't steal anyone. He found me dying on the road where you left me. I left you where you belonged. Lysandra's mask was gone now, replaced by something cold and reptilian. You were always in my way, always father's favorite, always mother's precious firstborn. Do you know how exhausting it was, watching you receive everything I deserved? You forged the will. Jessamine's voice shook. Father left the estate to me, and you changed it. Father was weak. He would have given everything to you out of sentiment, and you would have wasted it on charity and kindness. I saved this family from your incompetence. You killed Vivienne Valor. The words hung in the frozen air. Lysandra went very still. Who told you that? Her brother, the man I married. The man whose sister you murdered because she outshone you, because you couldn't stand being second best. I didn't murder anyone. But Lysandra's voice had changed. Defensive. Calculating. Vivienne's death was an accident. The saddle girth was faulty. The saddle girth was cut. You were seen in the stables that morning. Seen by servants. Whose word means nothing. Their word means something when a duke is asking questions. Jessamine stepped forward. When magistrates start investigating. When Lord Blackwood demands an audit of his missing investments. Lysandra's composure cracked. You've been busy. I've been surviving. Something you tried very hard to prevent. I should have tried harder. Lysandra's hand shot out, grabbing Jessamine's wrist. Her grip was bruising. Listen to me carefully, sister. I don't know what game you think you're playing, but you will not win. I have spent years building my position. I have allies you can't imagine. And I have information that will destroy your precious Duke if you don't back down. What information? His mother. Lysandra smiled. The previous Duchess of Ashworth. Everyone thinks she died of fever. But I know the truth. I know what really happened in this house 15 years ago. And if you don't convince your husband to drop his investigation, I will make sure the whole world knows his family's darkest secret. Footsteps behind them. That won't be necessary. Cassian emerged from the shadows, his expression carved from stone. You've been listening. Lysandra released Jessamine's wrist. How rude. You threatened my wife. You threatened my family. I'd say rudeness is the least of your concerns. He moved to stand beside Jessamine. Whatever you think you know about my mother, I suggest you consider carefully before speaking. Because I know things about you as well. Things that would see you hanged. You can't prove anything. Not yet. His smile was terrifying. But the ball isn't over. And I have a great many friends here tonight who are very interested in hearing certain stories. Lysandra's face went pale. You wouldn't. Watch me. He offered Jessamine his arm. Come, darling. We have guests to attend to. They left Lysandra standing alone in the moonlight, her crimson gown the only color in a world of shadows. They didn't return to the ballroom immediately. Cassian guided Jessamine through a side door, down a corridor, into a small sitting room lit by a single lamp. He closed the door behind them and leaned against it, exhaling slowly. Are you all right? No. Jessamine's hands were shaking. She threatened your mother. What did she mean? What happened 15 years ago? Cassian was silent for a long moment. My mother took her own life. The words fell like stones into still water. Cassian. She suffered from melancholia, dark moods that would consume her for weeks at a time. My father didn't understand. The physicians didn't understand. And eventually, she couldn't bear it anymore. He looked away. I found her. I was 15. Jessamine crossed the room and took his hands. They were cold. I'm so sorry. If Lysandra reveals this publicly, it will be used against my family, against me. The aristocracy doesn't forgive weakness, and they view melancholia as exactly that. His jaw tightened. She's been holding this over my head without my knowledge, using it as insurance. Then we accelerate the plan. Jessamine's voice hardened. We expose her tonight, before she can expose you. That's not... Cassian. She gripped his hands tighter. She killed your sister. She stole my inheritance. She left me to die. And now she's threatening to use your mother's suffering as a weapon. We end this. Tonight. He looked at her, something shifting in his gray eyes. You would do that? Risk everything? For me? You saved my life. You gave me a home, a name, a purpose. You believed me when no one else would. She released one of his hands to touch his face. This stopped being strategy a long time ago, at least for me. Jessamine, I know this wasn't supposed to be real. I know we married for practical reasons. But somewhere between the rain and now, I started caring about you. Not the Duke. You. The man who stands at windows in the dark. The man who still mourns his sister. The man who gave me back my life. Cassian's hand came up to cover hers where it rested on his cheek. I've been alone for so long, he said quietly. I'd forgotten what it felt like to have someone fight beside me instead of against me. You're not alone anymore. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and fierce, the release of weeks of tension and longing. His hands tangled in her hair. Her fingers clutched his lapels. They kissed like two people who had nearly lost each other before they'd ever truly begun. When they finally broke apart, breathless, foreheads pressed together, Jessamine laughed shakily. That was unexpected. Was it? His thumb traced her lower lip. I've wanted to do that since you negotiated terms from a sickbed. You hit it well. I'm good at hiding. His expression sobered. But I don't want to hide anymore. Not from you. A knock at the door interrupted them. Your Grace. Mrs. Alcott's voice, urgent. We have a situation. Cassian straightened, composing himself instantly. Enter. Mrs. Alcott slipped inside, her face grim. Lord Blackwood has cornered Miss Whitmore in the ballroom. He's demanding answers about his investments. Loudly. And she's responding with accusations about the Duchess. Claims of theft, forgery, mental instability. The guests are riveted. Jessamine's blood ran cold. She's doing it publicly, trying to destroy my credibility before we can destroy hers. Then we give them something else to talk about. Cassian's eyes gleamed. Mrs. Alcott, send word to Sir Marcus Thorne. Tell him it's time. Time for what? Jessamine asked. Cassian took her hand. Time to end this. The ballroom had transformed into a theater. 300 guests had arranged themselves in a loose circle around the spectacle at its center. Lord Blackwood stood red-faced and furious, brandishing papers. Lysandra stood opposite him, beautiful and defiant, spinning lies with the ease of long practice. The Duchess of Ashworth is a fraud, she was saying as Jessamine and Cassian entered. My sister was always unstable, jealous, prone to delusions. She attacked me, stole from me, and fled before she could face justice. Whatever stories she's told, they're the fantasies of a damaged mind. That's quite an accusation. Cassian's voice cut through the murmurs. Do you have evidence? Every head turned. The crowd parted as Cassian and Jessamine walked forward, arm in arm, united. Lysandra's composure flickered at the sight of them together, unbroken. I have the testimony of our household staff. I have documents showing her instability. I have forgeries. Jessamine's voice was clear and steady. Just like the letter you claimed I wrote to the Duke. Just like our father's will. Gasps rippled through the crowd. How dare you? Lysandra hissed. I dare, because it's true. Jessamine released Cassian's arm and stepped forward. Our father's original will left the estate to me. You altered it after his death, bribing a solicitor to make the changes. I have the solicitor's confession. That's impossible. Is it? Sir Marcus Thorne emerged from the crowd, a leather satchel in his hands. Because Mr. Pemberton was quite forthcoming once he understood the alternative was prosecution for fraud. He withdrew a sheaf of documents. The original will of Lord Whitmore, leaving the bulk of his estate to his eldest daughter, Jessamine. Alongside it, the altered version, with clear evidence of forgery. And Mr. Pemberton's signed statement explaining exactly how Miss Lysandra Whitmore compensated him for his services. The ballroom erupted. This is a conspiracy. Lysandra's voice rose to a shriek. They're lying, all of them. What about Lord Thornwood's estate? Lady Pemberton called from the crowd. The fire that destroyed everything? Another accident, I suppose? Lord Blackwood's voice dripped contempt. Like the accident that killed Lady Vivian Valor? Like the accident that left the Duchess of Ashworth half dead on a country road? I never touched Vivian Valor. Then explain this. Cassian withdrew a letter from his coat. Written in your hand to a groom at our stables, instructing him to ensure Lady Vivian's ride is memorable. Dated the morning of her death. Where did you get that? From the groom himself, who has lived with his guilt for 5 years and finally found the courage to confess. Cassian's voice was iron. You paid him to cut the saddle girth. You murdered my sister because she stood in your way, because she outshone you, because you couldn't tolerate anyone being more admired than yourself. She deserved it. The words tore from Lysandra before she could stop them. Vivian thought she was so perfect, so beloved, everyone fawning over her while I was invisible. I spent years being overlooked, underestimated, dismissed, and she waltzed into society and took everything that should have been mine. The confession hung in the air like poison. 300 witnesses, 300 members of society's elite, hearing Lysandra Whitmore admit to murder. I think, Sir Marcus said quietly, that we've heard enough. 2 magistrates emerged from the crowd, moving toward Lysandra. No. She backed away, her beautiful face contorted with fury and fear. No, you can't do this. I'm Lysandra Whitmore. I'm one of you. You can't... Miss Whitmore. The magistrate's voice was firm. You are under arrest for the murder of Lady Vivian Valor, the attempted murder of the Duchess of Ashworth, forgery, fraud, and arson. You will be held until trial. Jessamine! Lysandra turned to her sister, desperation cracking through her rage. Jessamine, please. We're family. We're blood. You can't let them do this to me. Jessamine looked at the woman who had stolen her inheritance, destroyed her reputation, and left her to die in the rain. "You told me no one wanted me," she said quietly. "You were wrong." She took Cassian's hand. "Goodbye, Lysandra." The magistrates led her sister away, her screams echoing through the ballroom long after she'd disappeared from sight. The guests departed slowly, buzzing with the scandal of the century. By midnight, Ashworth House was quiet. The servants moved through empty rooms, clearing glasses and extinguishing candles. The orchestra had packed their instruments and gone. Jessamine stood on the terrace where she'd confronted Lysandra hours ago, watching the moon rise over London's rooftops. The cold air felt clean after the heat and chaos of the ballroom. Footsteps behind her. She didn't turn. "It's done," Cassian said, coming to stand beside her. "Is it?" Jessamine's voice was hollow. "She's my sister. Whatever she did, she's still my blood. I helped send her to prison, possibly to the gallows. You helped bring a murderer to justice." "I know." She finally looked at him. "I know it was right. But it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like grief." Cassian took her hands, turning her to face him fully. "You're allowed to grieve. You're allowed to feel complicated things about complicated people. That's what makes you human. What happens now? Now the courts handle Lysandra. Lord Blackwood recovers his investments. Lord Thornwood finally knows the truth about his estate. And you..." He hesitated. "You decide what you want." "What I want?" "The arrangement was to destroy Lysandra. That's done. You're a duchess now, with your own fortune restored, your own power established. You don't need me anymore." Jessamine stared at him. "You think I want to leave? I think you should have the choice. You married me for protection, not love. If you want freedom, I'll grant you an annulment. You'll keep the title, the money, everything. I won't contest." She kissed him. It was gentler than their first kiss, but no less certain. She poured everything she felt into it, gratitude and frustration and the terrifying, wonderful truth she'd been afraid to name. When she pulled back, his eyes were wide. "I don't want an annulment," she said. "I don't want freedom from you. I want freedom with you." "Jessamine." "I love you, Cassian. I didn't plan to. I didn't even want to. But you saw me when I was nothing, and you made me believe I could be something. Not because of titles or gowns or jewels, because you believed in who I actually am." His forehead dropped to hers. "I've spent so long being angry," he whispered, "at Lysandra, at the world, at myself for not saving Vivian. I forgot there was anything else. And now? Now I remember." His hands framed her face. "You brought me back to life. You gave me something to fight for beyond revenge. I love you. I didn't think I was capable of it anymore. But I do." They stood there in the moonlight, two people who had found each other in the wreckage of their lives and built something neither had expected. "So what now?" Jessamine asked. "Happily ever after?" "Something better." Cassian smiled, and it transformed his face. "Happily, imperfectly, stubbornly ever after. Together." She laughed, and he kissed her again, and the moon rose higher over London, indifferent to the joy unfolding beneath it. 6 months later. Whitmore Hall had been transformed. The grand estate that had once been Jessamine's prison now served a different purpose. The East Wing housed a school for girls from impoverished families. The West Wing had become a refuge for women fleeing dangerous situations. The gardens, once manicured for show, now grew vegetables that fed the entire operation. Jessamine stood on the front steps, watching a carriage arrive with 3 new residents, a widow and her 2 daughters, fleeing a violent brother-in-law. "Welcome to Whitmore House," she said, helping them down. "You're safe here." The widow's eyes were haunted but hopeful. "Is it true? What they say about you?" "What do they say?" "That you were cast out with nothing, That you came back as a duchess. That you destroyed the woman who tried to destroy you. Jessamine smiled. I survived. That's all. And now I help others do the same. That evening, she returned to Ashworth Keep, where Cassian waited in the library with 2 glasses of wine and a fire burning low. How many today? He asked, pulling her into his arms. 3. A mother and her daughters. The older girl reminds me of myself at that age. Frightened, but fierce. She's in good hands. Jessamine settled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Lysandra's trial concluded today. He tensed slightly. And? Transportation, life in the colonies. She'll never return to England. How do you feel? Relieved. Sad. Grateful it wasn't the gallows. She looked up at him. Is that wrong? To still feel something for her after everything? It's human. He kissed her forehead. You're allowed to be human, Jessamine, even when it's complicated. She traced the lapel of his coat, finding the small pin he always wore, a spray of white heather, for luck and protection. I have something for you. She reached into her pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. I know we exchanged rings at the wedding, but that was a contract. This is a choice. Inside the box was a simple gold band, engraved with words in tiny script. Found in the storm. Kept in the light. Cassian's breath caught. Jessamine. You pulled me from the rain when I was nobody. You saw what I could become before I believed it myself. I choose you, Cassian, not because I need protection, not because of strategy or revenge, because you're the person I want beside me for the rest of my life. He slid the ring onto his finger, then cupped her face in his hands. I choose you too. Every day. Every storm. Every complication. They kissed in the firelight, surrounded by books and silence and the absolute certainty that they had found home. Jessamine had been cast out into the rain, told she was worthless, left to die by the sister who should have loved her. But she had survived. She had risen. And she had discovered that the opposite of being wanted by no one wasn't being wanted by everyone. It was being wanted by the right one. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. If this story moved you, if Jessamine's journey from the rain to redemption resonated with something in your own heart, I hope you'll share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below telling us your favorite moment and where you're listening from. And if you're ready for another story where love rises from the ashes of betrayal, subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss the next chapter. You're the reason these stories exist. Thank you for being here, for listening, for believing that even on the darkest nights, the right hand will reach for yours.